introductory presentation was covered in that video that I mentioned, and it will go through a lot of that basic introductory information. And the last one that I'll orient you to is the testing checklist. This phase is training and testing. Right? You'll come to these sessions and you'll get training, but then you'll take this home with you and do the testing. The number one thing for this process is for you to get into the system and try it out, which is why we create this demo environment where you can go in, you can try anything, you can add fake clients, only fake data, please, right? No real data, no PHI, so that you can get used to all those things that you will do in the system. So I encourage you to check out those documents. If you didn't get the email or having trouble with the links, please make sure you reach out to Mariah or Jeff so that they can make sure you have all of those materials. Without further ado, we'll come to Mon Ami. And like I said, this is the demo environment. It functions exactly like the real environment, except you don't have all of your client data. When you log in day one, you will have your full list of clients, your services over the last several years. And so it will feel like home. Right now, this is more like the hotel, where you've got all the trappings, but you don't have any of your client information. So the purpose of today is to talk about 3B. I know a lot of you work across programs. If you come to those other trainings, you might hear some of this information repeated. But as Jeff mentioned, some of your workflows will naturally change in the new system. And so what we want to do today is walk through those basics of 3B. Right? What are the things that you have to do on a daily basis? What are those key workflows that you'll be able to do in Mon Ami? So that's what I'm going to walk you through today. We got plenty of time for questions as well, so please feel free to raise a hand, put a question in the chat. Right? This is your time for training. So we're going to start with the most basic of tasks, which is new clients. Right? I'm sure all the time you're having people walk through your doors of the senior center. They're there for a class. They might be there for other services that fall under 3B. And so we're going to start with an imaginary new client. On the left-hand side, you'll see lots of different sections of the system. If you're currently logged in and you're following along, feel free to do that. You might notice that some sections are different. I currently am logged in as Mariah, so I have additional permissions. You might not see all of these sections. Doesn't mean that the system is broken. Just means that we've configured the system in order to protect everyone's information. But everyone would have this section here called clients. So we can click on clients. And again, we're going through the basic workflow of creating a new client. You'll notice this is a list of all the clients that Mariah has access to. You'll see only the ones enrolled in your site. So this list will be pre-filtered for you to show only your site. We've tried to load some fake data for everyone, so you have something to play with when you get in. If you don't see anyone in your site, again, doesn't mean that anything's broken. It just means that when we were creating this fake data, none got made for your site. You can still go through these same workflows. So from this client's index, we call this page, we're going to click New Client up here. And we'll start with this list, with this search bar. As I type a name, the system will be searching for that name within Mon Ami to prevent any duplicates. So if I start typing in Jeff, I'll see anyone with that name coming up. So this is going to help me prevent duplicates. And there's a few other safeguards within the system as well. but I'm going to go with my good old friend, Homer Simpson. And I notice that there's no names populating, so this is a new person. I then have the option to put in email and phone number or any additional name information. So I'm going to start with this. And I'll put in my phone number. So once I put in that email and phone number, the system will also check whether those numbers and emails are in use within the system. Again, with the idea of preventing duplicates, you might have spelled the name slightly differently, so it didn't pick up at that first round, but the second round will pick up. A fixture of all my meetings is my daughter. She likes to come and play, so you're bound to see her at some of your trainings. The beauties of working from home. In this page, you can add additional information, but as we know, or as one of the things that we learned is that a lot of times we're filling out that Agnes form first. So you might already have a lot of this within the Agnes. So we're going to go straight from here to finish. We've created this client's profile, and you'll see different aspects of their profile here. Again, for a full tour of the client profile, check out that introductory video, take you through each of these sections and what you can find there. We're going to look at these just in relation to your workflow today. So after I've created this profile, the next thing I want to do is put in that Agnes, right? We've got a new client. We have that information documented. So we're going to come here to the document section, and you'll notice a few different documents listed here. We have two different types within Monami. We have documents that you can fill out within the system, such as the Agnes. We also have what we call a document template, where you can upload a version of that document, and it's stored under that name for better tracking. So for example, if you were in the 3E program, you might fill out a nursing delegation. You'd fill that out on your paper, scan it into your computer, and then you can upload it to save it on the client profile. So we're going to look just at the Agnes for today. You're not going to set the program or the site. This will allow the document to be shared across multiple programs, but we are going to set the expiration date. The expiration date is not only helpful for knowing for your own purposes, but also for tracking and documentation. We'll have reports where you can see all people with an expiring Agnes for the month, so that you can, as an agency, know who you need to follow up on just from setting this expiration date. So here we have a version of the Agnes. There are going to be some slight updates as we get live, but for your training and testing purposes, you should be able to go in here and notice that it's very similar, should feel very similar to the one that you're used to filling out. And so these sections, anyone that is that we filled in on the client profile will populate here. And anything that we populate here will fill in on the client profile. And so one of the benefits of having the Agnes within Monami is that it talks to the system, and we'll be able to report on much of this information that you put in. So when we look at the things like date of birth, gender, and so forth, we're going to fill it out right now in the Agnes, and then we'll see how that goes into the client profile. So for example, let's go to date of birth. We're going to go all the way back. So we've selected a date of birth. We're going to select a gender. We can put in our address. Wyoming. And as you scroll through, I won't go through the entire Agnes with you today, but just a few things so that you can see how it populates. Again, all of these should be familiar to you. They're based off of your current Agnes. And all these categories are not only will populate your client profile, but they're also things that will be reported on both to the state and for our federal reporting. So I'm going to scroll down just a little bit, and I'm going to show you as well the nutrition screening. Sorry, we're not going to go through the nutrition screening today, but this is also within the Agnes, as well as ADLs, IADLs. I know for chore services within 3B, you might need to fill this out. So we'll just click through basically, and we'll do the basic click through, and you'll notice that it populates for you. So once I've completed inputting that information, I'm going to click finish. And all of that information is saved right here on the client profile. It's visible not only to you, but also to the state, so that you don't, they can always see who has a documented Agnes and whether it is, whether it hasn't expired. You can also download copies of this, view as PDF, and you can download this copy. And when you have multiple copies year after year, those will all be stored there on the client profile. So now we're going to jump back to the profile page, and you'll see that additional information that I added in, such as the address and the ADLs, are filled in here. So they've jumped from the document into the profile. And if I updated it here on the profile, next time I go to fill in that document, that will be pre-populated. So those are our first steps, right? We have a new client. We're going to create the profile and then fill in that Agnes. Okay. If you haven't filled in the Agnes at the moment that you're creating the profile, you can do that later. That's totally fine. But of course, we know as per state policy, you do need to have an Agnes for all your anyone receiving services. The next thing that I want to talk about is programs. So one of the big departures from WellSky is that in the old system, every client needed to have a care program in order to receive services. If they didn't have that, they'd be on your exceptions list, or you wouldn't be able to provide those services. In MonAMI, you can provide services or record services without a program enrollment. So for 3B, it's not required that you create a program enrollment in order to provide those services. So at the end of the month, you can generate those services, and we'll get to that in a little bit, without having to add them to your program enrollment list. One place where the program enrollment is extremely helpful is in managing a wait list. So rather than having to do that on a sheet of paper, you can do it here within MonAMI. And so I'm going to show you how to create a program enrollment, even though, like I said, it's not required for 3B. I'm going to click on Programs, add the program enrollment, and here we go, 3B. So again, even though it's not required, there are some helpful things that you can do within the program enrollment. You can note the client's timeline throughout your program, right? So when they became active, when they went on the wait list, You could also add that person or connect that person to an assigned staff. So if you did have a specific client list, so to speak, you could do that through your program enrollments. I'm going to just add that, and you'll see it's documented here on the profile. You can always refer back to this or manage that, the program enrollment. If you want to know more about program enrollments, you can check out within that the guide. There's how-tos and how to create a program enrollment, how to edit it, and so forth. But the number one tool that you'll use MonaMe for is reporting your services. So we've created that client, we've filled in the Agnes, and now we want to report services. Before we go any further into that next big step, Sarah, is there any questions from the chat that you think would be helpful to answer out loud?
Yes, a couple, because I also want to confirm with you. Micah has been with MonaMe a little bit longer than I have, so he's a little bit more seasoned. Just want to confirm. So Homer Simpson, he's only 56 years old. So technically, I don't think that he qualifies to be a part of the 3B program. Can you confirm that? I know the demo environment is different than the true environment. So yeah. I just want to confirm with you on that one.
Excellent point. I didn't scroll back far enough, and so this will be a perfect way to show you how to edit the profile. The way that MonaMe will manage and track this is through reporting. And we're not going to go through reports today, but you will have access to a report that shows you anyone who has received services based on their age. So you can look at anyone 59 and below who has received services in order to manage that and to view that for your program. So that's a great point. It's not the system is not going to flag that and prevent you from reporting that, but we will be able to show you that and help you to either delete, manage, or explain to the state why this person actually should receive services. So I'm going to actually update that for our own sake. I click Edit Profile. I can come down here, and then I'll scroll backwards just a little bit more. And with that, I can edit the client's profile. You'll notice that you can also add sites, and we'll talk about sites just a little bit later. Any other questions right now that we want to call out? If not, we'll have plenty of time for questions later.
Yes. So the senior center bookkeeper asked about scanning at the Agnes in rather than filling it out on the platform itself.
So Mariah, Jeff, I don't know if you want to cover that, scanning in the Agnes rather than filling it out.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to jump in here. So the way that we are building this system, the intent will be that we have a couple of options. Option number one will be that you, if your center is equipped and is able to do this, you should be able to complete the entire Agnes online using the MonaMe platform. So you can go through, answer all of those questions virtually. And what we will do for all new clients coming to the system, we're going to have a signature page that is a one-page document that just basically gives us that release of information for those clients. That page then can be added into the documents portion here in MonaMe, and that would count as that blue ink signature on the Agnes form. Now, the second option is going to be just as many senior centers are used to now. They're going to have that paper form available as the Agnes. The clients can fill that document out completely, and then they can have whoever's using and entering data into MonaMe at the site enter the information off of that Agnes document into the system, and then scan that Agnes form in as that release of information piece. Hopefully that answers the question out there. If not, happy to dive in more.
Thanks, Jeff. Sarah, one more, or should we move
Yeah,
on?
well, one more. Ray asked, when we enter the expiration date, does that date affect all service providers?
So some documents will be visible across providers. One of the ideas behind MonAMI is that that Agnes form can be visible from multiple sites so that you don't have to duplicate the work. Right? These Agnes forms are not living in a file cabinet. They're living in the system that we can all benefit from that information. That expiration date doesn't mean that the form goes away afterwards. It just gives you a reminder, hey, this person's Agnes is expiring. You should update it. And it will also, within reporting, it will flag people that have received services without an active Agnes. So yes, the expiration date is viewable across multiple providers, but it's not going to log the person out of MonAMI or delete their profile, anything like that. It's only related to that document.
Can I add something, Micah?
Yeah.
So also your Agnes, if we only need one Agnes, that is good. So say a participant is seeing multiple senior centers, you only need one Agnes now, and each senior center doesn't have to get their own as long as there's one on file that is still active for that participant, whether it's for Sheridan or it's for Gillette, then you guys should be good to go with services.
Excellent point. So let's imagine where we log in and someone has come to Homer has come to our senior center. We want to see if they have an Agnes beforehand. I can start typing in that name and click right here on the profile, come to documents, and then see that this Agnes is still current. Then I don't need to fill out another one.
I think some people have questions about how this will affect audits and who ensures that information is correct in MonAMI. Whoever wants to take that.
I'll jump in there. And so number one, I would say in terms of who's making sure the information is correct, I think that's going to be a shared responsibility. Number one, at the senior center level or at our provider level, we hope that you have some processes in place to ensure the information is correct. Just as we've done before, we're going to continue to do our quality assurance rounds with all of our providers, and we'll be working on ways to develop, quality assurance through that process. Obviously, the information that we put into the system is only as good as the folks putting it in. So we're going to put a lot of trust in you all to make sure that information is true and accurate as we go forward. And as always, we're open to suggestions on how that'll work. One of our biggest perks on this is that we hope that this will help eliminate some of that extra paperwork within your systems. If you all still want to continue to keep those paper Agneses within your workflow, that's perfectly fine. But our goal is to hopefully get that information logged in through this system and keep the electronic records of it going forward.
I saw a question about editing an Agnes. So let's say someone comes into your center, they already have an Agnes on their profile, but the information is different. So you can, in that scenario, you would create a new Agnes where you can update that information. If, let's say, I just entered this Agnes and I forgot to type in their notes on their Agnes, I could come and reopen it. When I reopen it, I could make my edits. But again, this is only if I just did this and I want to go back and make that edit, not if you are viewing someone else's Agnes. All of these changes are tracked So if you go and you edit your own, or someone within your senior center has edited it, you will see those. Those are all tracked within the system. But again, if you log in and you see someone has an Agnes and you have more up-to-date information, they moved or whatever that is, create a new one and update that information accordingly.
I have a question from, let me see, from Cheryl, and she's asking, I think this might be directed to the state, but she said if she's relying on information that is in MONAMI and it is incorrect, does she still get funding?
So with that, I guess I'm not 100% sure where that question's coming from. I suppose if there was ever like a QA finding where we recognized a client that was that you provided services for, and let's say they weren't 60 and older, likely what we would do with that is work with your site or the other site that entered that information to verify that the information was accurate or not. And depending on those findings, what we would do is likely just, let's say it turned out they weren't 60 or older, they weren't eligible for whatever program they received services for. We would work on coaching up both of those sites to capture that correct information. And then we would just remove those services from the final reports that we do as far as eligible clients. But as far as reducing funding or anything like that, I don't think that would be a pretty long shot to say that we're going to be taking funding away from folks for inaccurate information.
I know there's a lot of questions around the Agnes because of how important it is to the workflow and how much work you put into recording them and making sure everyone has them and they're up to date. There is some information in the guide around the Agnes policy and all those additional questions, which are great. Jeff led off with, some of those new workflows or procedures. Let's get those questions asked now. You can send them to Mariah or Jeff after so that we have that clarified. If you have these questions, I'm sure someone else has them as well. And we want to make sure that we get all those questions answered. We're going to move on to how to record services. And there's a few different tools within the system that I want to show you today. The first one is called the service record generator, and we're going to get there by clicking service records on the left-hand side. A service record is just what it sounds like, a record of service, and this is how we document that a class was actually delivered, a meal was actually provided, transportation was actually completed. So all of the services that you report, and they might come from different places, will all generate a service record that will be used for all of those summary reports that you have. So this is the service records index, and here you can see all the service records that you have reported, and you can filter and look back and at any of those records that you've put into the system. We're going to start by clicking on the top right corner and this manually add service records. So this will then add some of the basic information, such as the program, the service type, so the actual service that we're putting in. You'll notice that these look a little bit different. Lisa put in a lot of effort to clarify and edit down that list of services and sub-services. The goal is to make this a much more streamlined process and less confusion. If you have questions, you want to see this list, it's documented in the guide as well. So you can see them all listed in one place. And so let's assume that we are reporting our newsletter. Then come to add our funding source, which for 3B will always be 3B at this stage. And then you'll be able to select yourself as the provider. So obviously this is a very long list right now, but you'll be able to find your list and your site and report for your for your organization. So let's select carbon for right now, and we'll move to next. So here in the service record generator, you can add a bunch of different information. And this tool is mostly used for reporting aggregate services or reporting a small number of services. So if you have 1 or 2 clients that came in for an exercise class, you might use the service records generator. If you want to report your newsletter, because that is an aggregate service, you would use the service records generator. Which service is aggregate and what nomenclature to use, again, is in that guide. So you can always refer back to that if you're unsure. So I'll show you how to report one of those aggregate services. If we add in the units, it will populate for all of these rows, but I can also edit directly in the list. And I can also add the service date, again, for all the rows or for one at a time. Let's assume it's mid-November and I want to report for October. I can just place that date back in October, and you'll see it populates here, and that will document my services for October. When you are reporting an aggregate service, you'll use what we call a recipient group to report those services for. So, for example, you start typing 3B, and here we go. 3B aggregate recipient, that is our recipient group for 3B services. So any of those aggregate 3B services, whether it be newsletter or social media, those will all be reported using that 3B aggregate recipient name. Let's say we sent out 1 newsletter, but we sent it out to 100 recipients. I'm going to document it that way. Then the last thing I'm going to do is delete my extra rows. Once I have that in place, I'm going to click Generate Service Records. And here we go. That is in our list of service records. It also is in our reporting. So that automatically goes into your summary reports that both you and the state can see in terms of how many services you provided in that month. I'm going to do that one more time, and this time I'll use an individual. So let's add service records, manually add service records. I'll select my program. Now I'm going to use an individual service. So again, we would typically use the service record generator if there's a small group of people receiving those services, or it's an aggregate. So let's say just Homer took a ride today and I want to document that. Add next. And now I know this can sometimes get confusing because you can add the units up here and it will populate for all the rows, or you can add it in each row. So let's assume that I want to add Homer. I start typing that name and it shows up right here. And I want to put, he took 1 ride, so I can leave it like that. And this happened on the 21st. Now, I do have the option of adding more people. So let's assume that I had multiple people on that trip. And Jeff here actually took 2 rides. He went there and back. So we can also add that in. This could be a different date if you wanted to document it like that. And so that's why you can either add that date up top and it will populate all the rows, or you can add it in individually down here. I'm going to delete my extra rows and generate service records. Looks like some people are playing around as we go. Excellent. I'm so happy to see that. And hopefully once you're watching this afterwards, you can go through these steps one at a time. Also, I'll reference the guide one more time. The step-by-step how to add services within the service record generator is in the guide. Find that link and it will take you to the help center so you can follow those step-by-step. So that was one tool, the service record generator. Again, we use that for aggregate services and small groups of services. Let's say you have 50 people coming for an exercise class multiple times a week, or your transportation provider is reporting to you at the end of the month, and instead of one ride, you have 200 rides that you need to put into the system. The tool to use for that is called Smart Lists. We'll come over here on the left-hand side and click Smart Lists. A Smart List is a list of clients that we would expect to receive a service, and we base that off of two different things. Either service records, they've received this service in the past, so we expect them to receive it again, or service authorizations, which doesn't pertain to 3B, but if you are also managing WISE or 3E, you'll hear about those service authorizations during that training. So for the 3B program, these Smart Lists are generated based off of people who have received that service in the past, the idea that they're likely to receive that service again. So from this, this index, I'm going to filter this down, use this filter, because I only want to look at my Smart List for 3B. I could filter it. I could do some additional filters as well. I'm going to just click right here. Now, this is what the Smart List looks like. And when you find your Smart List, you have a few different ways that you can manipulate the Smart List before you do your upload. So when you're clicking this arrow, you see some of the ways that you can filter it. So I could report for October, or I could be reporting for November. I can pull, because this is based on my service records, I can look at anyone who's ever received this service, or I can look for people who have received this service in the last 30 days. I can also report for several different services at a time within 3B, or let's say I only want to report on those transportations again. I could remove some of these service types, and now I'll see only, I'll see a smaller group. You'll notice as I go over these names that these little menus pop up. It's an easy way. Is that Charisse? Which Charisse is that? You can get some additional information. You can also click to copy that information, or you can go directly to their profile. Just a small aside. Not only can you manipulate this Smart List based off of services, but you can also add or subtract people directly from the list. Let's say you know that Charisse is going away for the month, going to visit the grandkids. We can remove them from the list. Let's say I just got a new client named Homer that I want to add to this. I can add Homer. I can select the service and add them to my list. So the Smart List is a pre-populated list, a way to get you a head start for reporting your services. And it's based off of past recipients of these services, but there's ways to manipulate it as well. Once you have the list of people that you want, you'll download it. And this looks just like any Excel or CSV that you're used to. With this list, you can now put in the number of services someone has received for that day of the month. So we're talking October. I'll make this a little bit bigger. Let's say this person received one trip on the 5th and one trip on the 9th. This person had 2 trips on the 8th and 3 on the 12th. We can document all our services that way, just like any other spreadsheet. And then once we have this filled out, we'll upload it back to this smart list. So I have a pre-filled copy for us. This is exactly what we just did with several services recorded throughout the month. And I'm going to upload it right here. And when it comes into the system, the system will help you check and make sure that there are no errors in the document. Everyone's name looks correct, their ID is in there, and so forth. So it will identify any issues that you have, and then you'll import. So when you import, it will generate service records based off of all those services that you listed. So I can view those service records. Here's every record. Remember that we entered for multiple days. So we have records from the 24th, we have from the 18th. Those are all there. You can also see a nice summary of your upload. And when you're looking at this summary, let's say, oh, I forgot to add another client, or I forgot they actually got 3 rides. I can undo this upload right here. So you do have the option, right? Let's say you make a mistake, you can undo this upload, and you can also go back to that smart list. So I'm going to take a deep breath. Smart list is one of the most powerful tools that we have, one that you'll all probably use the most often, but there's typically a lot of questions around it as well. So I want to see what questions we have around smart lists.
Yeah, we have a couple of good questions that have come in. The most recent one I think is probably the most pertinent to this topic, but Ray was asking, do we only import service records off of the file we download from MST?
Meaning,
I think, I think which, like, you know, instead of like downloading the template that we have, could you upload your own? And like we could address maybe the difficulties that people may face if they try to use their own.
So as long as it is in this format, you can upload it. If you want to create your own spreadsheet, you can do that. However, it has to look like this and have these labels within it. That's why the smart list is a really nice jump ahead, right? So that you can have these things pre-filled for you. I can't imagine, let's say you're thinking, I have a sign-in sheet for my event, and I don't want to print this out for my sign-in sheet. You could certainly write down the names, sign people in, and then add them manually to the list so that you're creating your list. Or you could put those directly into the service record generator one at a time. If you do want to do the bulk upload, though, it does need to be in this format with the correct labels.
Yeah, and I think her name is pronounced Rihanna. She said, could you address the questions about program enrollments crossing over from SC to SC, I think senior center to senior center? I don't know if there's another Wyoming specific acronym, but yeah.
Are you talking about MST?
Well,
Nope.
Rihanna wants to say.
Yeah, I think what she was talking about is, how those service records would transfer from one senior center to another senior center.
I think she was referring to program enrollments, though.
Yeah, program enrollments.
Okay.
Let's put that in the temporary parking lot for right now. We'll get back to the client profile and look at program enrollments one more time. Are there any other questions about the smart list itself, the download, the upload, the management manipulation of the smart list?
Someone just asked if instead of daily rides, could they add a total of the month rides? So I guess in terms of units.
According to MonAMI, you can. I don't know if the state feels differently about a sum total versus daily.
I don't know that we've ever had a strict yes or no on that one. I think so long as the information is accurate for the month, at this point, we aren't going to have a strict say whether you enter 25 rides for November 30th, or if you enter each of those individual 25 rides throughout the month on the specific day.
Jeff, can I add something to that?
Sure.
Yes, I would say we've seen people do this already through WellSky. You can enter just the total, but again, going back to when Scott comes to see you, you still need to have something that shows how you got to that monthly total that you entered. So he's going to want to ask to see some sort of daily sign-in sheet or log into MST or whatever it might look like. But as far as entering them, yes, we are okay if you just want to enter the one monthly total.
According to the smart list, there's no problem. You put that number on the day, it will upload.
Micah, can you just talk a little bit about the MSC import type of process and how anyone who uses My Senior Center, how they can still get their data over at MonAMI?
Absolutely. So the My Senior Center integration is definitely a work in progress. I was speaking about it with our CTO earlier today. The ultimate goal is for the systems to be able to talk back and forth without needing to really intervene much. The way that it currently works in other states, and which will probably be the case when we go live, is that in My Senior Center, you can download a report that looks which looks like this, right? With all the units that you've put into My Senior Center in this format, so that you can download it from My Senior Center and then upload it to MonAMI. For anyone doing that, using My Senior Center and using that upload, you would do that, going back to service records, and then instead of manual, you would bulk upload. So that's where you could use that report you download from My Senior Center or another system, as long as, again, it's in that proper format, which is why we work together with My Senior Center to make sure they have all the proper definitions, all the program labels and everything like that, so that you can do that type of reporting. Any other questions about service records or smart lists before we go back to program enrollments? We'll definitely take a look at the chat, and we can definitely respond to some of these additional questions afterwards. We'll put together an FAQ document as well to make sure that we are answering all of these questions. And even if someone missed this session or you didn't get your question answered, we can do that after the fact. So the question is about program enrollments if you switched sites. You started at one senior center and then you moved to another. What would happen with your program enrollment? So let's imagine that we added this. This person came to Buffalo. They made a program enrollment for 3B. So we have this. It's documented. The site is Buffalo Senior Center, but then they move to another part of the state. We can manage, change this to, say they move to Cody. We can update that site and save that enrollment. So there is a way for people to move between sites and senior centers.
So Micah, what about if they don't necessarily move, but they're seeing multiple senior centers at the same time?
So it's totally possible to have that person belong to your site and to report their services. program enrollments on multiple sites, that's a good question. I'm going to have to get back to you, like to have multiple program enrollments. That's a great question. But just to have that person on your site list, you'll notice we have multiple sites here. So I could always add another site if I find that they've come to my senior center. And that's part of the sharing of the information. If someone exists in the system in Buffalo, we don't want a new profile in Cody, right? They should be able to exist as one person at multiple sites. So that's how we would manage that. And we'll definitely think about how you, what you would do with the program enrollment. So with our last few minutes, I'm going to draw your attention back to this testing checklist. All these steps that we went through today are here on the checklist. It's a way to help guide you through the system. So you're not just logging in and what do I do now? You can use this as I logged in. What can I try? Can I try, see if I know how to do a new client, right? You can come and try to do those different steps. Can I do an enrollment? Those different things that you could try are here, as well as the monthly reporting, both as aggregate and smart list. So again, just helpful steps for you to follow. And if it says filter your smart list or add a service and you're not sure how to do that, you can come to the guide where at the bottom, we have links to all these different help center articles. You need to be logged in order to access these, but you can access them either by clicking these links or on the bottom left-hand, the help. Oh, I'm signed in as the wrong person. No worries, that will work for you. I have too many things going, but you'll be able to get to that help center as well if you want to just peruse the different articles. Thank you all for being here. I'm sure I'll see some of you again at some of our next trainings. I don't know if Jeff, Mariah, if you have anything to wrap us up.
Mariah?
Just feel free to shoot me any questions via email. I might not know the answers yet because I'm also new, but we'll work to get everything figured out with each of you and get all of your questions answered. So I know there's some of them we weren't able to get to today.
Yeah, perfect. And I'm just going to echo that really quick before we all leave. Mariah is going to be our primary contact for everything within this database, at least during this demo phase. So just to try to help keep those questions coordinated, if you would use Mariah's email address, and maybe Mariah, you can drop that in the chat really quick. Just make sure that you're emailing her those questions. She's going to try to keep track of those. And we're going to be communicating with Monami every single week, if not every single day, as we lead up to our go live date. So if there's little tweaks, little things we haven't thought of that you're running into, please make sure you're sending those questions to us. And we'll do our best to make sure we address each and every one of them before we go live. And outside of that, we again appreciate your time, and we look forward to seeing many of you again tomorrow during the training session for C1 and C2.
Thank you all. Look forward to more training together.
Thank you.
Micah, so by the way, great job. I've been getting a lot of emails about people not getting the link. So I don't know if it was like a majority of people who didn't receive it or something like that with the demo environment.
Do you think it would be helpful to do a mass resend, or I don't want to reset someone if they've already logged in? Yeah. I know there was an issue. There were a bunch of sort of duplicates that people didn't get it because of that, or some emails that got mixed up. I'll continue